There are lots of financial talking heads out there, but there's only one who's local to Tucson. Welcome to Saving with Silverman. Mark Silverman is a certified financial planner, and he's here to help you with your financial questions. Today, we'll try to educate you about the financial world and encourage you to think of solutions to your financial goals. So, let's get started. Saving with Silverman starts now.
Welcome to the show, everybody. It is Saving with Silverman, because making smarter choices about your money certainly impacts the quality of your life. We thank you so much for listening to the show today and each and every week. And as always, joining us and serving our listening audience right here in the Tucson and Southern Arizona area is, of course, Mark Silverman, the president of Silverman and Associates. Mark, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing good, Mark. How about you?
Doing very well. Enjoying the weather so far. I know where you're at. It's getting pretty steamy, I guess, huh?
It's hot.
It just played into the point.
I'm not going to lie, but
it's hot.
But it will get hotter. So
yeah, there you go. Very true. Well, folks, Mark is he's a certified financial planner professional, and he's hot. So if you'd like to reach out to him, it's very easy to do so. He certainly makes himself available to the folks right there in Tucson and Southern Arizona by calling or texting him at any time, 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Mark's been doing this for a long time and can certainly help you as you're planning and getting set and prepared for retirement. And really, that's what our show here, Saving with Silverman, is all about, is making sure that you're on the right path, on the right road, if you will, towards retirement. And that's something Mark Silverman can certainly help you out with. 520-333-7601. Well, Mark, let's dive into the show. We got a jam-packed one today. I want to start off by talking about the 401k. But really, I just kind of want to do some common 401k questions. You know, we get lots of questions about 401ks on the show. We get them in the email sections and so on and so forth. So I just kind of thought it'd be a good idea to just address as many of these simple things as we kind of can in one quick conversation, just to kind of throw some stuff out there. So we'll start off with, the company plan is offering a program for most folks where they get advice on a 401k for a low fee. Is that something that's usually a good idea for people to use?
It's not a terrible idea. I think certainly reaching out to somebody, your own financial planner, financial advisor that knows your situation is obviously a better option, in my opinion. But it's, sometimes paying for a service, and a lot of times they're not super cheap, but they offer, I know Raytheon offers one through Fidelity where you can pay, I think it's 0.5%. I'm not going to endorse the company that does it, but there are companies out there that do that, that you pay a fee to, and basically all they're doing is giving you a model, and they rebalance it and that sort of thing. So I think if you're not going to do anything with it, it's better than doing nothing or just leaving it stagnant and not rebalancing it or not allocating it properly.
Okay.
But it's certainly not as good as one of the services we offer our clients if they're still working is if they have 401ks that we can't move or they don't want to move, we will give them advice, look at all the different investment options, look at their risk tolerance, look at their goals, and rebalance tell them exactly what their allocation should be based on their risk tolerance and what choices tend to be lower cost versus others. Because sometimes you'll see similar funds inside a plan. One will have less fees than the other, but the investment vehicles inside that plan are exactly the same. So right. The only difference being is the fee structure. So obviously the lower the fee, the better off the client's going to be. Like versus like type of thing. So, that's something that, and then we'll rebalance it and adjust it based on the risk tolerances. So as they're getting close to retirement, maybe becoming more conservative, that sort of thing, and really personalizing that experience. So that's one of the services we do offer clients. And again, I think that's probably your best option. But if you're going to do nothing, and just kind of let it sit there and you haven't changed the investment options since you started it, and you probably had a friend maybe that helped you set it up and you have no rhyme or reason of how it's currently allocated, because we see this all the time with folks, something's better than nothing.
Okay. So it sounds to me like, in a way, it's a service that's being offered, and that's fine. And as you said, it's something, if you're going with your own advisor, you're going to get much more detailed service, than they're really going to understand more about you. So in a way, it's kind of a little bit of a cookie cutter type of service that they're offering, and so that's the downside. So if you really want more of a personalized thing, having your own advisor in your wheelhouse is really going to be the better way to go. What about contributing? We always hear about that. We always know that we should. Should most folks contribute as much as they possibly can to the 401k, or only as much as the match is?
Well, I think at a minimum you want to contribute as much as you get the match. So if they'll match up to say the first 5%, you certainly want to do that at a minimum. Ideally, you want to max out as much as you can. And just to kind of restate, if you're under the age of 50, if you have a 401k, a 403b, thrift savings plan, 457. You can put up to $18,000 of your own money in there. That doesn't count the employer contribution. If you're over the age of 50, you can do actually $24,000. They give you $6,000 more that you can contribute to. And I'm always a fan of maxing out the best you can. But what I can tell you is if you are contributing, let's say 5%, and you're working with us, what we always tell our clients is, if you're doing 5, let's bump that up to 7, and we'll show you in your plan the difference of adding more, contributing more, how much farther along that's going to keep you hitting your goals. So I've never had a client. I've never had a client that said, "Hey, I've got too much money here. I don't know what to do with it all." But I can tell you is people are short. So the more you can put away, the better off you're going to be overall. So bumping it up. So let's say you were doing 5%, and let's say let's bump it up to 7 and see how you're doing. Give it a couple months. You're still putting food on the table. Bills are still getting paid. Bump it to 9. So just, gradually increasing it until you get to that point where you can max it out. Because ultimately, that's the goal, is to max out those plans the best you can.
Yeah, I need an example of that. Is my wife actually just got a mid-year raise, which she wasn't expecting, and it wasn't a lot, but 2%, but she wasn't expecting it. So she went ahead and just allocated, because she wasn't expecting it, she just went ahead and threw both the 2%, added that to her 401k and just raised it up another 2 to where she was already at. So, kind of keep moving your way through that. So certainly good advice there. To think about doing for folks. You're listening to Saving with Silverman, and of course I'm Mark Killian, your host, and Mark Silverman is the star of our show. He's the CFP, Certified Financial Planner Professional, and if you'd like to reach out to Mark, it's 520-333-7601. We're doing the Mark and Mark show here today, talking about common 401k questions. What about the target date funds, Mark? We all hear those, and when you work for a company, they kind of corral you that direction.
Well, and let me explain to what target date funds. They're a form of mutual funds, and what they are, they're actually a fund of funds. So how you can tell what those are is, let's say you have a fund that says target date 2030, target date 2035. So they're usually 5-year increments, target date 2040. So assuming you retire on a 2030 or even a 2040 or that sort of thing, but most people might not retire on a year that ends in a 5 or a 0, if you will. So what do? You take a mixture of them, or I've seen people that invest in all sorts of target date funds. But basically what you're doing is these funds are the same funds in each of the funds. What they do is the allocations or the amount that they own in the different funds. So you might have a target date fund that has 5 or 10 different mutual funds. And you'll have some that are stock funds, some that are bond funds, et cetera. And so as you get closer to that retirement date that's set in that fund, so let's say it's a 2030, as you're getting closer to that year, it's going to get more conservative each year. So they're moving more from stocks into bonds. And I think they're an okay way to do it if you're just starting out. So if you have a couple $1,000s in there, then trying to figure out which funds you should be in and rebalancing that sort of thing, I think it's a good way to start out. But once you get any real money in there, if you start to get more than, I would say, $10,000 in there, I think you're better off picking your own funds. And so you're not owning, it's more expensive to do a target date fund because you still have those same underlying funds, and then you have the fund to manage the target date fund. And you can get more customized if you're actually picking those funds yourself and adjusting those based on your situation. So that's one of the things we do with clients is, I'll never recommend a client go, hey, pick target date this fund or target date that fund. What I do is we will actually go in and dig deeper and pick the actual funds and make our own target date fund, if you will, where we can pick what we want. And it's a little cheaper that way because you're not in a target date fund. Plus we can pick exactly what's in there. So making the best choices. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, a lot of times on our show, we are talking with retirees and pre-retirees, usually folks that are ready to retire. And so maybe some of these things aren't really relevant to them anymore because, as you said, they may not be working. But sometimes we like to step back for those folks that are still working and say, hey, some of these things could be useful information, or maybe you're something you're not sure of. And that was what kind of jumped out to me about the target date funds, is that you don't really have any control, I guess. You have a better selection if you're doing this yourself, or you're working with an advisor who can certainly steer you in the right direction, correct?
Absolutely, because of the fact that we can take a look at your risk tolerance, your risk preference, where you are in relation to your goals, your other assets that you might have, and really create a customized, within reason. Because if it's in the 401k, we can only work within those funds that are available.
Right.
But picking the best of those and analyzing the fees of those funds, which is part of it, and then which ones have performed well, which ones haven't, what's the right mix, and really build a percentage and allocation for you of how it should look, and then adjust that, once or twice a year and rebalance it.
Yeah, because, and we say this all the time, and I'll kind of deviate for a second. We talk about customization all the time, but it really is important when you're talking about, your financial plans and your financial goals as you're heading into retirement, because everybody's different. And you've been maybe doing this kind of cookie cutter stuff along the way while you're working. It's just kind of easier. You pick the target date fund, you just roll along with it and go on and move your way through there. But as you're heading into retirement, you really want to start to have more control and be working with someone who can help understand your specific situation, because it's not going to be the same as the guy that you're working with in the next cubicle or whatever. So it's very, very important. And Mark Silverman can certainly help you with that, 520-333-7601. As we kind of finish up common 401k questions, Mark, this one I don't think we've talked about a lot. We talk about rolling things over to an IRA, but what about taking a loan? Is taking a 401k loan, is that a bad idea?
Well, and I've seen people do this. Taking a loan is an option. Most plans offer, not all, but most plans offer it. I believe the maximum that a loan could be would be up to $50,000. So they don't let you take the whole amount out. You have to have a certain amount in there. You can't borrow more than you have in there. One of the things is, and you're paying yourself back as you're making those contributions, you're paying the loan down. And usually I think the term is no more than 5 years. So, one of the things you have to consider is if you were to lose your job or quit your job, and let's say you still have a loan balance of $30,000, now that becomes taxable. So you have a $30,000, and if under the age of 59 and a half, you have a 10% early withdrawal penalty plus ordinary income taxes. Wow. And, hopefully you have the best intentions to keep your job, this or that, but people do move around a lot more than they used to.
Yeah, true.
And so you do have to be careful if you are taking loans out, that loans get paid off before you switch jobs. Some companies will allow you to assume the loan, but you can't always bank on that. And then the other thing also is making sure that if you got fired or laid off, that's a consideration too. So there are some risks to doing it, but it's certainly better than cashing out a 401k. A loan is a better idea. And I realize people get into situations where they need to borrow, and that may be the only way that they can do it. But there are some things you need to be careful of.
Okay. Well, really good advice here on Saving with Silverman. And, Mark, I know that we're kind of just doing some common 401k questions here, but another extension of the education that we try to provide here from the radio show, you also do not only with your consultations and the classes that you do around the area from time to time, but also with the white paper that you wrote not too long ago. And if folks would like to get a hold of that, how can they do that?
Sure. So there's no obligations. I wrote a white paper last year, the top 10 mistakes people make in retirement. And this would apply to anybody that's still working, and certainly people that are already retired. And having been in this industry over 22 years now, I've seen people do things the right way, and unfortunately I've seen a lot of people do things the wrong way. So I wrote this white paper, and my hopes in writing it was so that my current clients and people out there don't make these same mistakes. So I want to share this with you. All we need is your name and your full name, as well as your email address, and we will email it over to you. Again, no cost, no obligation. Happy to share this information with anybody out there that's interested. Just give us a call or send us a text and provide your full name as well as your email address, and we will be happy to get it over to you.
And that's 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. Do want to stress that there is no cost, no obligation, and you're not going to be hassled or pressured or anything like that. It's really just, as I said before, just kind of an extenuation of the education that we try to offer here on the show. But if you would like to come in for a consultation and sit down with Mark and talk about your upcoming retirement or retirement that you're already in, what can folks expect from that, Mark?
Absolutely. So, whether you're a first-time listener to the show or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your chance to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through this process we call the financial physical. And I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. Rather, we're going to discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. As part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have it, all insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. And this becomes the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 10 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
All right, folks, go ahead and reach out to Mark right now, 520-333-7601. Call or text. It's a great opportunity. Just make sure that you are indeed on the right road for retirement. And all you have to do is really just kind of initiate this by reaching out to Mark, 520-333-7601. There's a lot of great things he can do to certainly help educate you and see and show you that you're on the right path, or get you on the right path. But he can't do any of it if he doesn't get a chance to know you, and that is the part that you can control the easiest, and that's just reaching out to him. 520-333-7601 to come in and sit down with Mark Silverman, a CFP certified financial planner professional at Silverman and Associates. No cost, no obligation. Stick around, folks. There is more coming up on the show today. You're listening to Saving with Silverman.
Planning for retirement shouldn't be a mystery. So why is it so easy to get bogged down with financial terms and advisors who try to offer you a sales pitch? At Silverman and Associates, Mark Silverman and his team take pride in looking after their clients' best interests. Schedule a complimentary review of your situation. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
Picture this. Your financial statements have come in the mail. What's going through your head as you open them up? Maybe all that financial jargon is flustering. Maybe the numbers are confusing, or maybe those red arrows are leaving you in a funk. Don't base your future on a monthly letter. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman. Learn what true financial planning really looks like.
You're back here with us on Saving with Silverman. Mark Killian alongside Mark Silverman. It's the Mark and Mark Show. We certainly appreciate you tuning in this week as we talk about the worlds of finance and retirement. And if you'd like to reach out to Mark, he is the president of Silverman and Associates. It's 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. You can call or text anytime and just reach out to Mark that way. And so, Mark, let's talk about real estate and retirement planning. You know, I know the real estate market can be really fickle, and it's been fickle for years now. I think in a lot of places throughout the country, it's been kind of on the uptick, maybe a slow uptick, but on the uptick. But real estate can play an important role for a lot of folks, right? And so what's your general view of the uses of real estate and, just some things that you think of when it comes to incorporating that into your clients' potential financial plans or retirement plans, such as rental property? That's usually one that pops up for a lot of folks.
Sure. I mean, I'll say this. We work with lots of different types of clients. So I've seen, and some of this stuff works for people, and I've seen it not work for some people. As far as rental properties, where I see it works best is if you typically don't have mortgages, if the clients are managing the property themselves, because if you do outsource it to a property manager, they take part of it. If you do have, loans against those properties, that could eat up what you might be receiving. So there's pros and cons to anything. But I think for the right person, rental properties can make sense in somebody's portfolio. In the wrong person, it might not make sense. Some people want to keep it simple and don't want to be maintaining the properties. or if one spouse is maintaining it, and if something happens to that spouse, the other spouse is now responsible. Maybe they don't have the desire or the willingness to manage that property now.
True.
Then what do you do? Real estate can be fickle as far as, are you selling at the right time versus the wrong time? Those sorts of things. If you have a renter that's not in there now, and you need that income for your own expenses, what do you do if you have to go 6 months without that property rented? So there's pros and cons to everything, but I've seen it work successfully in some situations, and then in other situations I haven't seen it work well. So it really depends on the client, and we will have those discussions and talk about the pros and cons of why it may work or why it may not work in their particular situation.
Yeah, I think temperament is a good point that you make there. It goes a long way in determining whether it's the right fit for you. Some folks are very handy, and they just like the idea of going out and working on things and doing that sort of stuff. And if not, if you are farming it out, like you said, it could eat into your profit. So definitely something to discuss with your financial advisor as to whether it's a good fit for you. What about home equity lines of credit?
Where I recommend those is for, we talk about having cash reserves, emergency funds, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so the general rule is 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. I've said this before. For a lot of our retired clients, and we have a lot of retired clients, we tend to be even more conservative. We'll say we'll take 12 months worth of expenses should be liquid. So that could be any money sitting in cash, checking, savings, money markets, anything that you can get to without penalties, surrender charges, fees, etc. Another way to do that, especially for younger clients or clients that are still working that may not have enough cash reserves, is having a home equity line of credit that they can tap into. What you don't want is to have, it's like a credit card where you have a credit card and you've maxed it out, or a home equity line where it's maxed out and you can't use it for cash reserve or emergency funds. So using it the proper way, I think it could be a good thing to have. But using it in the wrong way, it could be a bad thing to have. So I'll just leave it at that.
Well, that seems to be the case with just about any investment, right?
That's actually true. I just thought of that as I was saying that. I'm like, everybody's situation is different. So there's the right way and the wrong way to use certain investments, and what's right for one person may not be right for the other, and vice versa.
Very true. And a lot of times there's so much information out there. That's when you really need to sit down with a professional and find out and get the advice. Is it right for me or not? And you can't really do that with a lot of the cookie cutter type things, because they don't take the time to really get to know you specifically and know what's going on. So Mark Silverman certainly does that. He certainly gets to know you and understands your unique situation. 520-333-7601 is the number to call. And of course, Mark, you're a Tucson native. So the real estate and retirement planning, we're talking about that here on this section. Are you familiar with, I know you're familiar, but can you explain to us what real estate investment trusts are, and do you think that's an appropriate thing for a retirement plan?
That's kind of a tricky one. So there's different types of real estate investment trusts. I don't want to get it too complicated, but basically what it is, a pool of investments. It could invest in apartments. It could invest in commercial properties. It could invest in residential things, residential properties, I should say. There's different types. There are traded, which you can buy and sell, and they're readily available to buy and sell at any time. Those I think can work well in somebody's portfolio. The ones I would really, really stay away from, and I have several clients that have these. They didn't get them from me. They bought them from other financial, I don't even want to say advisors, other financial salespeople, are the non-traded REITs, non-traded real estate investment trusts. And what I can tell you is, just Google that. You'll see lots of class action suits. They're highly illiquid. They pay the advisor, financial salesperson, huge commissions. I've never sold one, never will sell one. I think they're a bad deal for my clients, and I've had, like I said, I have clients that have them, and unfortunately, they still have them because in a lot of cases you can't even get out of them. And those are a bad deal. So I would just be careful if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Yeah. And the reason why people buy these things, they're promised a 7 or 8% rate of return. It's not really a true rate of return. It's eating into your principal, and they're highly illiquid. So stay away from the non-traded REITs. And if you are looking at any REITs, I would do your homework and ask lots of questions. And if something doesn't make sense, do not do it. But if you do have specific questions regarding those, certainly reach out to me. I'll tell you the truth of what's what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely, folks. Make sure you do your homework before you do any investments. At any given time, make sure that you're always doing the diligence, and make sure you always check with a qualified professional before you take any action whatsoever. Well, Mark, so we were talking about real estate and retirement planning, but I think we'll go ahead and just take the opportunity to say it's a great time to say, sitting down and talking with someone who's a fiduciary like yourself really is going to help folks kind of understand what the information they're getting is on the up and up, because you are not only legally but morally, ethically obligated to do the right thing. And since you're mentioning some of those REITs can be a little shady, it's always great advice to sit down and talk with a professional before you take any action, as I mentioned. So what can folks expect if they stop by Silverman & Associates?
Sure. So again, whether you're a first-time listener to the show or have heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your chance to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through a process we call the financial physical. I can assure you I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. Rather, we'll discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. As part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have it, insurance, all types, as well as how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. And this becomes the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This consultation will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
All right, folks, 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601 to take advantage of this no-cost, no-obligation consultation with Mark Silverman of Silverman & Associates. Stick around. When we come back, there is more on Saving with Silverman.
Life is complicated. It's full of twists and turns and complex issues. The last things you need when planning your financial future are confusing numbers and advisors who just offer you a sales pitch. We believe there's a simpler way to invest. Your financial plan should be built on a plan that's made just for you. It's all about discovering your goals and designing a strategy that will help you get where you want to go. And don't worry, we'll track your progress along the way. Stop wandering your way through your investing life. Come in for a visit today. To schedule a visit, call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
Learn the path to a worry-free retirement. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
You're back here with us on Saving with Silverman, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Mark Killian along with Mark Silverman of Silverman & Associates. And if you'd like to reach out to Mark at any time, please call or text him by reaching out and dialing 520-333-7601. So, Mark, are you a glass half full or half empty kind of guy?
I'm always glass half full.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask Mark a series of questions, and you out there in radio land, you decide if you are half a full or half empty type of person, optimistic or pessimistic, as we go along through here. Our first one is the stability of the Social Security program. Mark, what's your thoughts?
I believe that I try to be very optimistic, but I also try to be very realistic when working with my clients. But,
well, that's a good thing.
I think you have to be. I think Social Security will be there, depending on how old you are. If you're already receiving Social Security, I think you're fine. If you're within a few years of receiving Social Security, I think you're fine. I think if you're 10 plus years away or more, there are going to be changes, unfortunately, because there's more people taking out than putting in, as we all know. I think that they're going to have to continue to keep raising the ages that people withdraw money out of. Maybe they make that 75, but realistically speaking, people are living longer. So I think that's normal. But having said that, I think you also have to consider that you can't rely on Social Security too much. But if you're relying on Social Security, at least at this point, to be more than 25 to 30% of your overall retirement income plan, I think you're not going to have the type of retirement that you may want to have.
Yeah, it kind of needs to be a piece of the puzzle, but it certainly doesn't need to be, over half the puzzle. I don't think that's for sure. Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
So, we're talking about, are you a half full or half empty kind of person? How do you feel about the Social Security system out there? What about healthcare affordability in the future, Mark? Half full, half empty? What do you see there?
That's a good one. I try to be optimistic there, but there's so many uncertainties right now. I think we've made some improvements in some regards and we've went backwards in some areas. So I don't know what that answer is or what that looks like. I could just tell you that the system I think we have in place now is not a great one. Medical inflation, the last number I saw, and it seems like I repeat this every week, it seems like, medical inflation, the last number I saw was 6.5%. So healthcare costs are on the rise, and 6.5 is a hard number to sustain. It's a work in progress of what we're going to see as far as healthcare. If you're receiving, Medicare and you're under that program, I think you're fine with a good supplement, that sort of thing. That's always a conversation we have with folks because, even if you have, if you're debt free as far as no mortgage, that sort of thing, and you have to get a plan on your own, you could be looking at a mortgage payment, paying $1,000 to $3,000 a month in some cases for probably not a great healthcare plan.
For a lot of our listeners and a lot of the folks that tune into our show around the area, really for that situation, you want to just make sure that you've got a plan in place to address your long-term healthcare needs as well as your current ones by just making sure that that's a part of your plan that's being factored in by your advisor. And if that's not being addressed, then that's certainly something you want to talk about with them. And if you need to get a second opinion on that, or you need to just have a conversation about any of these topics that we tend to talk to about here every week on Saving with Silverman, make sure you reach out to Mark and get that second opinion. It doesn't cost you anything. There's no cost. There's no obligation other than about an hour of your time. 520-333-7601. 520-333-7601. Are you a half full or half empty kind of person? Glass half full, glass half empty. What about tax rates in the next decade, Mark?
And to touch on kind of your comment, most, unfortunately, in my opinion, most financial advisors don't do much advising. They're doing more selling.
Oh, they're good.
So I guess the question out there is, are you working with a financial advisor or are you working with a financial salesperson?
True.
And unfortunately, very few people in this industry, as I've seen, are truly giving advice that's in the client's best interest. It's more just selling products. But tax rates in the next decade, I think they would, unfortunately, are going to have to increase. If you look and see what's happened over the last couple of years, tax rates have increased, but historically speaking, of where we have been in the past, tax rates are still low. The big problem is we have this national debt, which is not going to pay itself off. I think tax rates will have to continue to increase. And so that's just my 2 cents. I don't have a crystal ball, but that's the way I see things.
Right. And it's something that you, again, as we just mentioned about having an advisor or having someone who's just selling you a collection of products, that's something that should be addressed as well, right, Mark? Because you got to take it into account.
We do planning for folks. These are all discussions that we have and saying, how do you feel about this? Or, what's your thoughts on this? And so that's the conversation of how would you address this if this happens?
Yeah.
How would you address this if that happens? And we can run the numbers and show you. So that way, because nobody, again, has a crystal ball, but we like to make certain assumptions and make sure that if this happens or that happens, that you have a solid plan. So we've addressed those sorts of things.
And of course, Mark, you being a fiduciary and a CFP, that's a lot of what you do is really try to educate people on the best tools and investments for them specifically.
And that's really what it's about. I mean, the only way that we can really help people is to be able there to listen. Yeah. And obviously we can't listen to them through the radio. We answer some questions here and there, but to give specific advice and really get to know our client situations, that has to be done through interactions and meetings and that sort of thing. So, I mean, that's the whole key of what we do. And that's why we don't give specific advice over the radio. We're giving you general advice and things, ideas of how we've helped our clients in the past, and trying to guide you that sort of way. But in order to get specific, as you mentioned, and giving specific advice, that can only be done, one-on-one.
Well, and I challenge challenge you folks, if you're out there and you find yourself to be a glass half full or half empty kind of person, and you really want to find out more about where you stand and what you're after, or maybe you even know, but you want a better opinion or a second opinion or just a different viewpoint, I challenge you to go ahead and reach out to Mark Silverman and sit down and see the difference. 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. And we'll finish off with the glass half full or half empty by saying the next 5 years of the stock market, Mark, what do you think? Do you think we're going to continue to ride this Trump train, or, who the heck knows, right?
It's a tough call. I mean, I try to be optimistic, as we just discussed, but by the same token, we are in the second longest bull market in the history of the stock market. So we're 9 years into this, and so it'd be foolish to believe that we're never going to have another correction, or that we're not going to have a correction anytime soon. I mean, each day, I think most people agree, each day we're one day closer to a correction. So it's just being prepared. And if you're doing the right things, if you have a plan, if you're taking the appropriate amount of risk and adjusting your portfolio to as your risks and your goals and objectives and those sorts of things change, and you're working with someone on an active, proactive basis, I think you're going to be fine. It's the people who are taking a lot of chances, have let greed slip into the formula, which it does for a lot of folks. Yeah. And they're not proactive, or they're working with an advisor doesn't have a lot of communication with them, or maybe sold them something and they never heard from that person again. Those are the situations where people get hurt. But if you're working and you're meeting with your advisor that's very proactive and that's addressing your needs and concerns, congratulations, you have a great advisor. But if you're not having that type of relationship, or if you're doing it yourself and not sure the type of job that you're doing for not just you, but you and your family, that's when you want to reach out. But the next 5 years, who knows? I would imagine, if I had to bet, that we would have some type of correction in the next 5 years. I would be surprised if we didn't, because what goes up must come down. Not saying that we won't be better off 5 years from now, but you need to be protected, and staying invested when the market is struggling is a tough pill to swallow. So we always try to take the right amount of risk for our clients, and that's why we don't take a cookie cutter approach. We try to work with each client individually and build a plan that's specific to their needs and their goals.
Yeah, and if you want to make sure that you're going to be okay, no matter whether it's up or down or whatever the case is, again, that's when having the right advisor on your side is going to make all the difference. And so again, I'll issue this challenge. Go ahead and reach out to Mark Silverman at Silverman and Associates. Go ahead and get this white paper he's done as well. You get a free white paper just by contacting him. But really, go ahead and come in and sit down and have a conversation and talk to him about your specific situation and find out if the two of you are a great fit for each other. And Mark, how can they do that, and what can they expect?
Sure. So the white paper, as I mentioned, we're happy to offer that to anybody. It's called the Top 10 Mistakes People Make in Retirement. It's something I wrote. I'm happy to send that out. Just simply call or text us with your full name as well as email address, and we'll get that out to you, no strings attached. But for those of you that would like to learn more as far as how if we might be a good fit to work together, like Mark said, just like you get a second opinion on your health, why wouldn't you get a second opinion on your wealth? So if you're a do-it-yourselfer or already working with another advisor, this is now your chance to go through a process we call the financial physical. Do you know what your investments are costing? We mentioned that earlier in the show. If you're still working, are you on track to have the type of retirement you have always envisioned? If you're already retired, do you know if you or your spouse are at risk of running out of money while trying to maintain your current lifestyle? So whether you're a financial delegator or a validator, we can help. I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. In this initial meeting, we are going to address issues of importance to you, provide an overall view of your situation, and give you general advice on what needs to be completed. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. And I can tell you, if you're working with a financial salesperson, a broker, an insurance person, they do not have a fiduciary responsibility. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. Just as you want to reach a healthy life from a physical standpoint, you also want to reach and maintain great financial health. So our financial physical is just what the doctor ordered. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 7 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. Again, call or text 520-333-7601 for Mark Silverman. You're listening to Saving with Silverman, and we'll be right back.
Mark Silverman is a lifelong Arizonan, and his firm is based right here in Tucson. When you come in for a visit, you can expect someone who's familiar with your community. At Silverman & Associates, our relationship with you is most important to us. We want to build you a financial plan that's unique to your goals. No generic products, no corporate red tape, just friendly folks looking to give you a comprehensive approach to retirement planning. Come in for a visit today and let us help you build a meaningful retirement. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
You've got questions. We've got answers. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Well, it's story time here on Saving with Silverman. We're going to pull up a chair and let Uncle Mark sit down and tell us a good conversation about an interesting time he's had with a client and how he was able to kind of help them through that. And if you'd like to kind of have your own story time with Mark Silverman, don't forget to call or text at any time, 520-333-7601, to come in and sit down and have a no-pressure consultation with Mark and really talk about your unique, specific financial situation. So, Mark, here we go. Tell us about a time when somebody was really just kind of completely shocked when you revealed to them really what they're paying in fees. I know that those hidden fees are troublesome for a lot of folks, and maybe there's a story or something you recall in there where someone was just kind of really bowled over by how much they were paying in fees.
That happens a lot. I mean, that's one of the things here. It's always amazes me how people have no clue how much they're paying in fees. They know they're paying them, but they don't understand how fees are collected. And I think part of that's due to, unfortunately, our industry not being fully transparent, especially the brokerage mentality of the typical stockbroker. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are still under that arrangement. But, we believe in full transparency here in my firm. But part of our analysis that we do for folks is we'll undercover, the fees that they're paying. So if people are on a fee-based type of account where they're paying an annual fee that's charged on a quarterly basis, they might think, well, I'm paying 1.5% or 2%. And I think we had a case just recently where they were actually paying 2%. And I'll say this. We don't work for free, and certainly I don't think anybody does. But the fees should be reasonable, and you should know what you're paying. But they were paying 2%. Unfortunately, what they didn't realize, they were being charged fees because they were in mutual funds, and then in some of those funds that they had, some of them were close to 2%. So in that case, they were paying over 4% in fees in certain parts of their portfolio, and they had no clue. And so these are one of the things that we help clients uncover and understanding, and certainly it's hard to determine value. We believe that if you don't know what you're paying, and if you don't know what you're paying, you can't determine if you're getting value. If you know what you're paying, then you can determine, well, I'm paying this, but I'm getting this. And yeah, maybe that makes sense. Maybe it doesn't. But if you have no clue what you're paying, how do you really determine if you're getting any value from it? And fees have to be reasonable. If you're paying 4%, you have to make 4% just to break even. And in a low interest rate environment, that's very, very tough. That's a tough pill to swallow, if you will. Mm-hmm. So it's important that you understand if you are on a fee-based platform and you are using mutual funds, your fees can be quite high. I'm not a big proponent of using mutual funds. If you are, you should hopefully be using the lower cost or institutional share classes, not the loaded type. And I'm more of and I've said this before, we tend to use exchange traded funds, ETFs in our portfolios here, or individual securities. And I think clients are much better off that way for a multitude of reasons. But it's important that you understand that. And if you do position it to the advisor and say, what am I paying? You need to know what you're totally paying, not what am I paying you, the advisor? Because yes, you may be paying the advisor that 2% in this particular case with these folks. But what they didn't understand was they were also paying the mutual fund company 2%. So it's important you understand the total fees. And some advisors, unfortunately, when you position what am I paying you versus what am I paying, it's important that you understand that. And it's something that we can hopefully add clarification to. But it's something you do need to understand. And a lot of people, maybe don't want to know what those fees are in the back of their mind, but they should.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say sometimes I'm sure that's a little bit of that, is that you kind of want to know and you don't want to know. But if you don't, like you said, you can't make any educated decisions on what you want to do with those things. So very important to sit down with someone, folks, to make sure that you are kind of getting the top to bottom view of everything and understanding where you stand in all those categories, not just where you're invested and where your income is coming from and your revenue streams and so on and so forth, but also what you're paying out and what you're invested in. And Mark Silverman can certainly help you all with all that. Of course, as you know, Mark is a CFP certified financial planner professional and is available to you anytime by calling or texting 520-333-7601. It's really worth a conversation, folks, just to find out where you stand. 520-333-7601. Go ahead and call. No cost, no obligation. Stick around. There is more Saving with Silverman right after this.
Did you know that Mark Silverman and his team offer a complimentary Get Acquainted meeting where you can learn more about what he can do for you? The goal is to determine whether you might be a good fit for each other. That's because the folks at Silverman and Associates are all about building long-standing relationships. They aren't offering you a slick sales pitch or a get-rich-quick approach to retirement. Instead, Mark offers a simpler approach to investing. It's based upon your goals, and his strategies are tailored to your needs. To find out more about his unique planning process, call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
You finished school and worked hard to get your first job. You told yourself you'd save for retirement, but that old jalopy you bought when you were 16 broke down, so you bought a new one. You started to save, and soon you bought your first home. Then came pets, kids, and your world changed some more. You worked hard to provide for your family. You made sure your kids got a good education. You might be sending them to school right now, or maybe it's the grandkids' turn. And of course, you're now making sure your parents are looked after. Through the years, you lovingly sacrificed for your family. Now it's time to take care of you. Love others well by taking care of yourself. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman to discover how to build a financial plan that'll continue providing for you and the ones you love for years to come.
Well, we're cruising down the home stretch here on Saving with Silverman. Thanks so much for staying tuned into the show. We certainly appreciate it. Mark Killian alongside of Mark Silverman, certified financial planner professional from Silverman and Associates. And if you'd like to reach out to Mark at any time, you can do so by calling or texting him 520-333-7601. Go ahead and blow his phone up and get on the horn with him and come in and have a conversation about your unique, specific financial situation. 520-333-7601. We're going to finish off the show, as we always do, with the mailbag. And it's time for those questions from around the area. Our first one comes to us from Jeff in Bisbee. And Jeff says, "Hey, Mark, I'll be turning 63 in a month, and I'd really like to retire soon, but I'm worried about what to do about my health care insurance since I won't be old enough for Medicare. How do you normally advise people in this situation before turning 65?
Well, thanks for the question, Jeff, and thanks for being a listener. I think we just talked about this earlier. That's part of the planning process. So when we build custom plans, this is one of the decisions that we need to talk about. And so I work a lot with different subject matter experts, whether it be a CPA, estate planning attorneys, health insurance professionals, other people that I know and trust here in Tucson. And so we'll find out those numbers and really plug them into the plan and figure out how you're going to pay for those. And a lot of times, as I mentioned earlier, it could look like another mortgage payment. So if you already have a mortgage, think of a second mortgage. If you don't have a mortgage, good for you, but you might have a mortgage payment now for health insurance, and the plan might not be as great as what you have through work, unfortunately. So again, it's part of the planning process, but what I commend you on thinking about these sorts of things, because a lot of people don't, that want to retire early, and I'm all for retiring early if you can, but you need to figure out the healthcare component, because that's probably one of the biggest challenges people are going to have that I see going forward, is figuring out what you do until you're eligible for Medicare. But great question. If you want to sit down and have that conversation and look at the numbers and see what kind of impact that's going to have on your plan, certainly reach out to us.
All right, Jeff, thanks so much for the question. 520-333-7601. As Mark said, to go ahead and reach out to him and run those numbers. 520-333-7601. 7601. Question now from Mary Ann Marana. So she's got a pretty simple one here, Mark. See what you think. She says, what's better, term life, universal life, or whole life?
Well, Mary, thanks for the question. It really depends on the situation. So there's, different things that as far as what the purpose of the insurance is, or if you, quite honestly, if you even need the insurance. And, I am insurance licensed, I will say that. But again, I don't think everybody needs insurance. I think certain people do, certain people don't. So depending on what your need is, that's really going to determine it. I mean, the term is going to be the cheapest form. So depending on if you just have a certain period of time that you're trying to cover, if you are looking at life insurance to pass money on to another generation, universal or whole life could work very well there. If you are looking at maybe using the life insurance to pay for, long-term care expenses, or what we call accelerated death benefits, living care benefits. Term doesn't offer that, but universal and whole life, some of the companies offer those as well. So it really just depends on what, and I just threw out a whole bunch of different ways that you might be able to use insurance. So it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And based on that, then we can determine what's the most appropriate type, if any, of what type of insurance that you may need. So great question, but without knowing more, it's hard to say, one, what's the best type, and two, if you even need insurance.
All right, Mary. Well, there you go. So what I would do is I'd go ahead and call or text Mark and just have more of a conversation with him, let him know more specifically about your situation, and then he can kind of dive into that a little bit better for you. 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. And our final question this week on the show, Mark, is from Donna in Saddlebrook. And I got to word this right. She says, my husband has always been a tight, with money, but it's even worse ever since he retired. He won't let us spend anything with the money. So is there a way I can fix this and get him to loosen up?
Well, Donna, thank you for reaching out, and hello from Saddlebrook. I actually have a large number of clients out there. It's a great area. Not to get in between you and your husband's way of thinking here, but maybe the fact that you guys are having a great retirement is because he was smart about his money and maybe being more frugal or smarter. But, I think, again, it goes back to the planning. We run a lot of plans for retired folks. In fact, most of my clients are already retired. And having a plan for somebody that's retired makes a lot of sense because of the fact that, when we're doing these sorts of things, we could run the budgets and show you if you were to spend X amount of, or if you're spending X amount of money, what happens if you increase your budget? Are you going to run out of money? The only way of knowing that is really to have a financial plan. And so maybe this is one way to fix it, is having somebody come in, whether it's me or a certified financial planner, run an actual financial plan for you if you haven't done that, and running the numbers and showing you, hey, if you were to do this, you're going to be okay. Maybe your husband will be more open to spending money on the things that you want to spend money on, whether it be travel or whatever's on your bucket list, that sort of thing, and doing those sorts of things if you know that you can do it confidently without the fear of running out of money. And that's why we take a planning-based approach rather than a selling-based approach, which is what most advisors are doing, is just simply selling stuff and not really knowing that if the clients are going to be better off or not. So happy to have that conversation with you. It's a great question, but really that's the only way we can assure that you're going to be financially independent and financially stable in order to do the thing that you want to do with having a financial plan.
All right, folks. Well, thanks so much for the questions this week. And if you'd like to reach out to Mark Silverman and really get a taste of what he can do for you and how he can help you out, Mark, go ahead and let's make that offer to him one more time as we close out the show.
Absolutely, Mark. And this has been another great show. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be here. I'm really glad you're here. So just like you get a second opinion on your health, why wouldn't you get a second opinion on your wealth? So if you're a do-it-yourselfer already working with another advisor, this is now your chance to go through a process we call the financial physical. Do you know what your investments are costing you? If you're still working, are you on track to have the type of retirement you've always envisioned? Or if you're already retired, do you know if you or your spouse are at risk of running out of money while trying to maintain your current lifestyle? So whether you're a financial delegator or a validator, we can help. I can assure you I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. In this initial meeting, we'll address issues of importance to you, provide an overall view of your situation, and give you general advice on what needs to be completed. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. Just as you want to reach a healthy life from a physical standpoint, you also want to reach and maintain great financial health. So our financial physical is just what the doctor ordered. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly, so I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 3 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
All right, folks, 520-333-7601. That is your number to call, or text 520-333-7601. We're talking to retirees and pre-retirees. This is a great chance to make sure you're headed in the right financial direction as you plan for retirement. So make sure you reach out to Mark Silverman right now for no cost, no obligation consultation with Silverman & Associates and Mark Silverman. He is a CFP certified financial planner professional. 520-333-7601. Mark, thanks so much for being on the show again this week. We appreciate your time and your wisdom as always.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks everybody for listening. I appreciate it. I hope you got some value, and have a great week, everyone.
Make sure you stop by the website, folks, at any time to get more information about Mark at savingwithsilverman.com. That is savingwithsilverman.com. And as we depart, don't forget to call or text 520-333-7601. We'll see you next time on Saving with Silverman.
Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, product, service, or investment strategy. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified advisor, tax professional, or attorney before implementing any strategy or recommendation discussed herein.